Welcome to Celebrating Women of Substance. My name is Cheryl Rankin, and I want to thank you for joining us this morning. Today we chat to Malanie Mazibuko, who has an amazing story to tell, and I'd love you to join in with the conversation.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me once again. And thank you for this beautiful platform. For everyone, definitely has a story to tell. So my name is Malanie Mazibuko, known as Laverne, which is always in our colored communities, all the way from the south of Johannesburg. Grew up on the outskirts of Rivoli, Horseshoe. So it's quite a local area as well as Westbury. And growing up, it was always that the tone of your skin actually did matter at that point in time. And being Nubian and obviously being dark skinned was quite difficult for me as a child, because even in the school that I attended, so it started quite young that one had to know one's place as well as your self identity, which I was able to establish that I'm not born to fit in, I'm born to stand out and to stand up and to help those and to actually make the difference, because I had to realize that if I had to wait for anybody, it wasn't going to make me happy at the end of the day. So this really actually became my stronghold all this time in my life. I'm a 37-year-old mom to a 11-year-old son as well as a 7-year-old daughter, and that has also taught me that with having your children around, they actually want to see you the strongest. It's not that you cannot be vulnerable, but they want to see you in all your elements. So I realized in 2011, when I was diagnosed with depression, that it either I make it or I leave it completely. In 2016, when I tried to commit suicide and waking up 3 days after my attempt, it got to the realization that this is life and I'm going to have to make the best of it. And then we had the huge blow wave in 2020. And now you're back indoors and you're used to being out, because I have a lot of community projects that I work on, and now I had to be home. And the first few weeks I was like, yay, it's cool, we're together. And after that, you're like, this is not working out. Because you feel everyone is in your space, everyone is dirtying the dishes, and it gets quite overwhelming. And then the concern comes with financial difficulties and how to juggle it and how to be available, because I always laugh when we're actually supposed to give a report based on 2020, and I applaud our teachers, because a lot of times it looks easy when the kids go to school and come back, but having to homeschool them took a lot. It took us reading as parents, as Googling. I think, Google really made money out of our data, because it was like, yes, everybody started going for Wi-Fi. Because we never saw it as a necessity, we saw it as a luxury. Okay, I don't need it. But during 2020, it became like, I need Google. Google is my best friend, because we had to Google most of the time.
Right.
And with us being in 2020, it got again to us going through to the source. That's why even this opportunity that I received in 2020, it was really shaking that it's an agriculture project that I was able to be part of. And it reminded me that we needed to go back to our roots, as in even biblically, because that is what has kept me, was the substance of faith and reading the word of God and meditation. And even though every day one feels overwhelmed, I've learned that to shut out the world and become quiet, because there's so much preference within quietness, within stillness. A lot of things start making sense. And for me, it was a pro and a con for 2020, because when we went into lockdown, the con for me was that I had to be with the family 24/7. And normally we used to go into our own spaces. But the pro was the fact that there was nobody that could actually save you.
Right.
It was all about discipline, all about knowing that to sanitize, wear your mask, having social distance. It was a lot coming that you couldn't be with your family. I think that was also one of the cons, because we couldn't actually celebrate Mother's Day last year.
Yeah.
And we had to all do it viral, like we had to all create different groups and celebrate Mother's Day. But the biggest thing that I've taken away and what has kept me was the fact that we have substance, and if you are not able to be gracefully broken, there's nothing that could actually grow from you. It's like a plant when it actually seems as though it's dying. It wants to you to continue giving it water.
Right.
And to continue, it also takes biblically when there was a fig tree in the garden, and the owner was like, I think you should uproot this and move it. And the gardener said, no, master, keep it. And that's so many times with us in our personal lives when things don't work as you planned it,
Yeah.
and you feel maybe I shouldn't continue this business. Maybe I should leave. Because I was laughing when we looked at the masks and the PPE. Everybody in 2020 was like, I'm gonna make masks. And it became like the ultimate it became the ultimate source. Like, we're gonna sanitize homes. And it became like, okay, is this gonna be the way of life? But later on we realized that we had to go back to the drawing board.
Yes.
We had to go back as into what we need, how we need it, when we need it. And even when us being able to do this project regarding agriculture, it's as well as the importance of a balanced diet, which is a balanced mindset as well. So it just really, on my journey, that has been my conquering, and obviously within faith as in well as biblically, that is what has really kept me. And constantly that in the process of me healing, it's for me to continue helping others. I think that's the biggest thing. And with a lot of businesses being shaken, we had to move, we had to downsize. So
Right.
much had to take place. But I kept on reminding myself that it is okay. For the fact that I always tell the kids, whatever's happening, as long as we're together as a family, it's difficult when we are apart. But when we're together, it actually works out so much better. It makes much more sense that we're together in this. And every obstacle I face, I believe that there's a greater reward.
Right.
So I always laugh. There's a graph that they show when we think about life, we think about the straight line.
Yeah.
And when we get this dip, you're thinking, okay, do I jump? Do I scream? And in my earlier years, I was the screaming queen. I could cry, I would shout, I would be vulnerable. And getting to know the word of God, it's like God is not moved by that.
Yeah.
He wants you to have a conversation with him. He wants you, it's as well when you go for therapy or when you have a close friend. So in my process, I've learned that the women that are within my circle, it's quite a hand, it's just a handful.
Right.
I don't have more than 5 or 7 women that are within my circle, and each one has a part of me that I'm able to share. There's one where I call and I'm like, okay, these kids are not behaving. What do I do? And this is my situation. The other one I would call, I'm like, okay, financially, now you and I need to think of another plan. This
Right.
can't continue.
Yeah.
And I think so for me, being able to speak about what I'd gone through. And we actually lost a loved one through suicide last night. And I spoke to my husband. I said to
Wow.
him, this is real.
Yeah.
It's not that we coward. It's not that we've given up. I
Yeah.
said to him, this the powerful thing of the mind. It's so powerful that it can destroy you.
100%.
So you ultimately, yes, you need to ultimately fight against those negative thoughts, because it will bring an assumption of nothing, and it will
Right.
ponder on your thoughts at that point in time. And I always say to him, I remember when I had the attempt, my daughter was 2 years old. And I felt, and this voice said, you know what, you're not worth it. You're not needed. So, to all the women out there that are feeling like that, I'm asking not to sit in those corners. Our police stations have got networks that we can use. We have government systems that is able to step in and to assist and get a trusted friend. That is what has really helped me in my motivational speaking with our young girls. And validating yourself is vitally important. And I always go back where I say, my name possesses who I am. So you take your name, and the acronym of your name has so much more meaning, that you are the goddess within. And I always say, because it's so sad that our youth lives on social media. So they're exposed to a vast variety, and there's so many things that they get to see. And it's the flashy lifestyle that we are always drawn towards because it looks like it's easy. But one thing that I've learned, that no matter the difficulties or whatever you're going through, you are ultimately going to set a goal for yourself and set to achieve that goal. And even now, I've taken up so many tasks that it's every day that I'm okay, I've achieved this. I've learned to write things down because
Mm.
it actually makes so much sense. Because you end up going to the supermarket and you get home and you're like, but I didn't get the flour.
Yeah.
That was the most important thing.
I've done that many times.
And I actually laugh because my 7-year-old says, Mom, did you make a list? And I'm like, no, why? She's like, you can't go to the shops without a list. You need to make sure what you buy. I'm like, okay, practice as you preach. So I'm learning how to do that in my daily task as well,
Yeah.
because so many times we become overwhelmed.
Mm.
We become so into a setting, and it actually helps because even if it's just as little as to buying school uniform
Mm.
or to call a creditor and say, I'm not able to make payments this month, it's something that you've achieved to do and to overcome, because once you sit back and it's all in your mind, it just starts driving you crazy and you go
Mm.
through a whole series of emotions because you're not able to pin it down and write it down and to share and
Mm.
to say, this is what I, because once you echo it also. And one thing I'm learning the children as well, my oldest is in grade 6, so he'll say like, oh mom, this is difficult, and I'm like, no, 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 practice makes perfection. The
Yeah.
same with us as adults. Every time I come across something difficult on Google, or because for now, some reason my phone has gotten to a new language, and I'm like, but I'll continue typing in English. You will eventually get it. So it's those little things, because the little notches, and that's what I've learned, because within everything that we face, it's the little notches that become small moleholes that become
Right.
huge.
Right.
And if we're not able to speak about it, it's although even the talks that we have, I'm quite vocal with my husband as well. When I say to him vocal, meaning he needs to express how he feels about something. If he's
Right.
not happy, let's talk about it. If he's not okay, let's talk about it. And
Yeah.
for him, for most men, it's because he's quite cultural, he's Zulu. So for him, it's like, and then what's going to happen? I'm like, it doesn't matter. For
Yeah.
the fact that you've spoken about it, it makes the other person be aware that you didn't like it. Those are the ways that we need to learn. It's the same for him. He's totally against hitting children as in discipline. And it takes him back to his childhood. So we all have scars from our childhood
Mm.
where we need to be able to speak about it, because this is the first time I've been married for 13 years. The first time that he's actually spoken up about it. And like,
Mm.
okay, so what do we do? How do we discipline? Which ways do we look at it? And those are the things, even as women, because we always been taught to be strong. And
Right.
I always say to him, I'm not superwoman. I am not your mom. I am not your sister. I am your wife
Yeah.
and I'm your friend. And there are days when I am good, and there are days where I might be used to doing the same thing every day, but there are days I might fail at it. And when I fail at it, it's not as though I'm incompetent. It is just a reminder of, okay, hun, today the roast was a bit crispy. Maybe we need to turn down the oven. Don't ask me what happened, because maybe nothing happened. I was just absent at that time.
Yeah.
So it is just for us to encourage good behavior during the time.
Mm.
It's what COVID has brought about, being able to communicate, because you had to be able to tell your family, okay, I need me time. I
Mm.
need to get into the shower. I need to get into the bath. I need to shut my door. So if my door is closed, let me be. And
Mm.
when I come out, I'm able to avail myself to each and every one. So
Yeah.
those are my coping strategies that I look at.
Mm.
And daily, it's okay, what didn't work for me, because so many times we need to visit what didn't work in the
Mm.
past, because a lot of times we keep repeating things, we keep repeating, and it's like the cycle is not breaking, but it's like, have you learned?
Mm.
It's
Mm.
in the same as in business. I mean, when our business closed down, so now it's again, you're starting a new business. What were the mistakes that we made before?
Mm.
And I think the biggest thing is for us to communicate. For us, language speaking, it's as though even when my daughter, because I love, she's 7, and she once she throws her eyes up, I'm like, okay, because with us growing up as colored kids, there was no point of conversation. Mom said it was the final word. She Googles you with her eyes, and you know, I pray the trade carefully. So my 7-year-old is like, Mom, why are you opening your eyes? What
Yeah.
happened? What did I do? So it's us teaching our kids to be vocal, as well as my son.
Mm.
I'm very emphasis of, how was school? Are
Mm.
you finding it interesting? Is it difficult for you? And I think that's what COVID has taught, as well as a coping, that We need to continue speaking. And kids are so smart.
Mm.
At times I'm like, okay, did that really come out of your mouth, or am I imagining it? So as family, I think that's vitally important, because I'm also one person where I used to fail. I would be so busy that I don't sit and have supper with my family because I'm on the laptop, I'm on my phone, I'm busy planning or doing things. But now I've gotten to the point where 6 o'clock, phone is down. If anything happens, maybe if I look at it at 9 before bed, in case there's a message from school, in case there's a transport issue from picking the kids up, that will be only I will just literally scroll and pick out 3 of the importance. Okay, message from mom, message from work, okay, message from somebody that I'm close with. So I'll look at those before going to bed. But other than that, any other group, I'll rather look at it through the day, because there's so many things that we absorb. And it becomes part of your life, and you're like, but why am I so frustrated? Why am I so angry? And it's such a huge dynamic. And even being able to express, because when I tried to commit suicide, my husband wasn't even aware.
Right.
He was in the house with me. He didn't even know I took an overdose. I took anti-anxiety tablets and I went to bed. The next morning I couldn't wake up. And it's such a small world that we live in. And I always ask that even our churches and other communities, that we open up, and it's not a sign of weakness. This is really a greater attack on our society for men and for women, because it feels as though it becomes a norm, but this is not a norm for life to go. There should be a place where you're able to express yourself and to share your thoughts and to say, I am not doing good today. And if I don't feel like cleaning the house, because it's so subsequently that as women, it's so sad when I walk into your house and like, oh, there was a dirty cup. Did you see the dishes in the sink? Oh, I don't think I'll visit for a cup of tea. But instead of getting up and coming and saying, oh, let me help you with the dishes. Oh, you do. I was just actually finished with my laundry. Step in and assist, because I firmly believe when you do that, that person will be able to say, you know what, I had a crappy day. That's why there were dishes in the sink. Instead of me sitting 2 hours at your house and you're not even able to do that, and I still leave and you're still sitting with the same problem. That's why we have also learned with regards to agriculture and everything, man cannot make water. Man cannot make the soil. And those are the things that our hands need to go back to the sowing, to teaching each other and being able to assist one another as women, and saying, I always say to people that I haven't received the millions yet. Don't worry. Don't worry. But one thing I do have is amount of time. And if it means that you want to come over and send me a text and say, I just need to talk, I need to vent, then I will be available for that. I don't need to give you answers. I just need to be available for you to be able to talk. And I believe as a society, by that, we are able to heal. It's the same when it comes to raising boys and girls. For me, with my daughter, I'm able to see, okay, there's an attitude that's spiking. It's the A, you're able to nudge. But with sons, it's quite a different dynamic, because there's an ego involved. Because as soon as we start stepping on it, it affects adulthood.
Right.
Because they're not able to express themselves. And that is so great, because even working for the foundation that I am, which is the Fatherhood Foundation of South Africa, that has taught me a lot. And I always say to the co-founder, which is that, Uncle, coming to the Fatherhood Foundation, I got healed in the process. But how I got healed was not sitting by myself. It was helping others get through it. Other youth being able to speak to me and say, I was once at that stage. What would I have done differently? What mistakes have I made? But those mistakes don't own me. It's for me to learn, to grow, and to move on. It's the same when things happen with technology. And I was laughing this morning, waking up, getting this news. And you're thinking, okay, our first reaction, because the mind will say, cancel the meeting. You're tired. You just need rest. This is who's going to listen to the video? It actually makes up so many scenarios. And it was like, even if it means I have to put a dress upon my PJs, I'm going to dress up and show up.
And I must say, Malanie, that has been a big thing for a lot of people. And I know I battled with that as well, is that you're already making a decision before you've even started. And you've already failed before you've even started. And I think when I started this channel, it was a case of I'd wanted to do it, and I kept finding reasons why I shouldn't do it. And I had the same thing. Nobody's going to listen. Nobody cares. And then, my kids just said to me, Mom, just do it. And I have been amazed at the response that I've had, and the stories that women have to tell, because you think you're the only person going through it. And the more you start chatting to amazing women, you realize how many women actually are going through incredible traumas, and yet they're still standing and they still have the support of their family. And I just wanted to be an inspiration for women out there to say it's okay to talk about it. It's okay, because nobody's going to judge you. We go through it and we lift ourselves up and we move forward. And yes, I believe wholeheartedly, because of my faith, that God is the one that pulled me out of my severe depression. I don't know what I would have done had it not been for my faith. That depression, it was really, I was in a dark place. And I have to say that there are times where you have to turn around and say, you know what, it's enough now. And you've got to pull yourself up and say, I've got to move forward. And but I realize there's a lot of women out there that just, are just in such a space that they don't feel that anybody cares. And I just want the message to be that there are so many women that do. And this is a platform that is not there to judge anybody. It's a platform to listen. I just wanted people to be able to tell their stories so that people can listen to them, and it will give hope and inspiration to women that are going through similar issues.
100%, and it's so true. As you're saying, that so many women find themselves in such a deep space. And what I'm so grateful for, when I went through on Instagram, it was not me just telling my story. It's actually a testament and sharing that, you know what, even if it means you need to reach out to me, it is okay. I will be available. I will sit with you. I will listen. Because the biggest thing is, in society, we've been taught that everyone has their problems. But what the greatest thing is, when we come together over that cup of tea, I always say to people, even if you give me a black cup of coffee, it is fine. For the fact that I'm there to sit and to listen to you, and getting a trusted friend, which is so, so, so important. It is very important that as women, we speak up.
Right.
I don't care what background you have, where you're from. I think so many times we look at the credentials of what I've achieved, how old am I, where am I staying? And I think for me, for the fact that you are still breathing, you are precious. There is a life that is in that grave that never had an opportunity to even achieve what you've achieved this morning to wake up. There's someone in hospital that is on life support, that is on dialysis, that the hours are being counted. But while you are still alive and still being able to move, let us make the strides in it. You are not alone, Queen, and I'm not going to fix your crown and tell the world about it. I think that's where we get afraid, when you're like, okay, am I supposed to tell you? What do I do? What if you tell the whole world? But I think once we become less of what will the next person say, it's where my healing came from, because I got to the point where I didn't even care anymore what you said. It is how I went through this and how I got through this, because there's somebody sitting in that room that could have gone through the same thing, or that's going through it, that I'm ultimately be able to speak, and that person will say, I heard this conversation, let me try this, let me actually get in contact with that lady and be able to hear how she got through it. And ultimately, because when I look back, it was hard. And even every day coming out of depression, it's not, okay, I'm healed. No, it's a constant fight in standing up and saying, I refuse to feel this way. I refuse to lay down and cry myself to sleep. I refuse to feel so vulnerable, because that's when it comes over that you feel so alone in a room filled with people. And that's where it actually gets to attack you. And I've learned that if I feel that way, I always laugh when the kids like, Mom, you're making a noise. And like, I feel overwhelmed. So I need to scream these thoughts out of my head. And I'm not screaming at anybody. I'm singing an upbeat and I am just being active. So I just want to give a word of encouragement to women out there that, Queen, you are not alone. You are beautiful. You are smart. And it starts with the woman in that mirror, that when you look at yourself and you say that I am beautiful, I am gorgeous, I'm worthy to be loved, I'm worthy to be appreciated. And words of affirmation is what I give myself. I don't look at my flaws and I'm like, shoo, once upon a time my breasts were here. But that's good. I have breast two beautiful children. So it's okay if they're hanging here. That's why we have support bras.
But Malanie, you're so right. And I think that it's an incredible encouragement to see, to actually talk to you and see how positive you are. And I think that, it's going to be an encouragement to other women out there that, it doesn't matter. I mean, you yourself, you attempted suicide and you came through the other side and you have the most beautiful disposition. And I think that in itself is an encouragement to me, just to see how God has brought you through that. And I think it's a vital step in the right direction, because you will now be able to teach those around you, including your children, that it's okay if you're not doing well. It's okay if you're in a bad place, because you can step out of it and you can get to the other side. And I think that has been my message right from the start, is that it's all right. Just because you're in a dark place doesn't mean to say you're alone. There's so many people in a dark place. And if we just support each other, so many more women will get through to the other side with little scarring.
Thank you so much for creating this amazing platform and even being able to send your story and you reaching out. I think that was even the hope, because so many times you want to tell your story, you want to share, and it doesn't come to fulfillment, that you really just wanted to share a message. There is somebody out there that is able to just hear, and even if it's just knowing. And I always say, when you close your eyes and it gets so dark, trust me, there is light.
Yeah.
And there's light at the end of the tunnel. And I just thank God so much every day, with even in, and I always say, where the real love comes in, it's when you're constantly being able to speak to him, and he hears and he understands exactly, and he knew exactly what will take place. I think that was with the greatest discovery, even with reading the word, because so many times we receive the word, but once you start reading it for yourself, you're able to make certain notes. And even going through the Bible, there are certain repetitions of the word of God. And it's like the word stays constant. It's the one thing that doesn't change.
Yeah.
Because tomorrow morning you'd wake up and our Father, which is the president, will just announce that this is what happened.
Yeah.
But with God, it's a process, and he takes you through that process, and he says, you will go through it. But one thing that I guarantee you, it will not kill you.
Yeah.
It will not harm you. You just got to continue. And it even takes me, I always laugh when we talk about Jonah, and so many of us has actually been sent on the mission. And when we start denying that mission, whatever it is, because sometimes we look at it and we're like, I remember when I came out of my depression in 2016, and there was an announcement that they needed Sunday school teachers. I started judging, like, no, what am I going to teach these kids? Sure. I felt like, no, I'm going to probably, because that voice tells you, what are you going to teach them?
Yeah.
And eventually, when it took me a year, and eventually I got in contact with the principal of the Sunday school, and I'm like, okay, I've been teaching since the age of 12, and I would love to come back. And she said to me, we've been waiting for you.
Yeah.
And I thank you that you eventually answered. And it's been the greatest highlight when they start hugging me, and I'm like, I used to Sunday school teach this child at the age of 9 and 11, and look at you. And it's like, wow, if I had not stepped in, besides the fear will always be there, but it does not have to overcome you. That's one thing I've learned. And as you said so lightly, and it was so powerful what you've said, when it's like, we've already failed without even trying. We've already, because it's just the fear of like, oh no, I can't. And I always look at it differently. What if I had not answered? What else was, because I was tired of just sitting and receiving the word. I had to be able to practice what I'm learning and being able to sow it. It's the same when we're on the farm, and it's like, that's your time where you get to speak. And that is, I always say, because I laugh when my husband says, can you imagine if God was a man? I'm like, why? He says, I'm sure the line would be so long for 15 days. People will stand and complain and complain and complain. And for the fact that he is an omnipresent father, that you can only speak to him and he works at his timing, not your timing. I think that's where I got it right. And from 2016, I haven't been in a corporate industry.
Right.
And God has sustained. I think so many times when I felt I had to leave the industry I was in, I thought, who's going to feed my kids? How am I going? There's so many whys. And so many times we stay in certain situations because of the why. But once you step out and you said, Lord, you said that you will look after me. You see to the lilies, you see to the bees. I am one of yours. And I'm asking you to look after me because he says, ask, seek, and knock. Because so many times we don't ask. And that's where I failed in life. When I feel overwhelmed, I don't ask. I get quiet.
Mm.
I don't seek anything and I don't knock on doors. How is the door going to open if I'm not knocking?
Right. 100%.
It's the same when I saw your ad, when I saw the wonderful tell your story. If I had not just sent it, I would have still wondered, what if I'd sent it? I wonder. And tomorrow I come across the video, I'm like, I was supposed to, and I was supposed.
Yeah.
But we never stepped to the opportunity. I always say to the kids, do it afraid. Even if you're not 100% at it, do it afraid, because that's what I'm doing. I'm doing it afraid. At the age of 37, I'm busy studying ECD.
Yeah.
I've learned that the love for children that I have, and once I've discovered that, sure, nothing is impossible as long as I put my head to it. And people are always laugh at my mom, and she's like, my dear, I think I'm over for a cup of tea because I need to know, where are you right now? And she's like, because you're on the farm, you're everywhere. And I'm like, Ma, once you discovered what God has planted in you, you feel like an octopus. You want to go out there and conquer. And that's the only way we overcome. It's when we conquer what we think it's impossible. Because for men, it might be impossible, but not for God. It's the only thing. It's even when it comes to parenting, I always say there's no module. There's no book that I can Google. Yes, we can read a whole lot, but it ultimately comes to what will work for my kids? How would it work for them? And how would I be able? It was on Tuesday when we had the horrible car accident, and I had to sit with them and I had to explain to them that this happens and we are family. We are well, we're together. My son got very badly bruised, but it's always to encourage him and always to tell him, you're so handsome. Yes, the bruises and the scars will be there, but one thing is for sure, we're still together as a family. Because in a blink of an eye, we could have lost each other. So life is precious. You are beautiful, queen. We were not born to fit in. We were born to stand up and to stand out and to help each other.
I tell you, that is a wonderful way to end. It's been amazing chatting to you. And I really want to thank you for your time and for sharing your story, because it's just been positive. Everything that I've heard from you it's got just such a positive spin to it. And I think it is definitely going to encourage a lot of women out there. So I just want to thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you, Malanie, for sharing your story. What an inspiration you are, that you've managed to come through an attempted suicide to be such a positive energy. And I believe that your story is certainly going to give inspiration and hope to other women out there. So thank you for taking the time and sharing your story with us. If there's any other ladies out there that would love to share their story, please contact me. You can contact me on my Instagram page, which is Celebrating Women of Substance, or on my YouTube channel, which is also called Celebrating Women of Substance. I would love to hear your story, and I'd love you to share your story with other women, because even if your story just helps one woman, it has served a purpose. And I just want to thank you for taking the time to listen.